Hello everybody, I'm Jim Masters with CUTV News Presents. Our guest today is Samantha Ruth. She's a transformational psychologist as well as a speaker and an author, and somebody who makes it her life's mission to help people with transformation, with transition through life, dealing with loss and grief, and pursuing their true sense of self. She's a licensed psychologist and somebody who really cares about people. She makes her home right here in the greater Denver, Colorado area. As a matter of fact, for this interview, I asked her, where would you like to film? She said, I want to film at Red Rocks because it really represents the essence of who I am. So that's where we are. We're on location in beautiful, well-known and gorgeous Red Rocks in Colorado to learn more about her incredible story and about how she's helping people one by one truly find their sense of self and reclaim their life. Samantha, it's so great to see you and meet you in person. We've done so many great radio shows together on CUTV News Radio, and now here we are on location in beautiful Colorado, and you've selected this spot of Red Rocks. What is it about this particular location that really speaks to you? What is it about Red Rocks that really moves you in the way that it does, Samantha?
It's my therapeutic place. It's a combination of the outdoors, the beauty of Colorado, the skyline of Denver behind us, and great music most afternoons and evenings. And music and nature are what heal me.
Do you come here just to walk and sort of get away from the rat race of it all, and maybe for some healing and clearing of the mind as well?
Absolutely. I didn't realize that it's this busy sometimes on the weekend in the middle of the day, but during the week it's not, and there's hiking trails and so many places to just go get lost.
Absolutely. Good spot, good choice.
Thank you.
So let's go back in time and talk a little bit about some of the things in your life that first initially inspired you to want to become a psychologist, to be somebody who studies people, observes people, and really helps them through those transitions and transformations in life.
I've been asked that so much recently, and the only thing I can come up with, the only answer is that I am a deeply sensitive person. As a child at the Tiger Games, Lou Whitaker, if you're from Michigan, was huge, and the fans would cheer, Lou, and I thought they were saying boo, and I would burst out crying.
Sure, yeah.
And I've always been sensitive to when I feel like somebody's a target. I came home from a field trip as a child, traumatized because I saw somebody getting bullied, and I hadn't seen that before. And I think I've just always had this inner fight to speak up and stand up for people that might not be able to do it themselves.
So then what were some of those first steps that you took in terms of pursuing your education and developing your skill set as a psychologist and with all the other work that you do?
My life and my career have intersected always. I obviously went to school, got my degrees, and that's right when I met my husband after I got my master's degree. I was 24 years old, thought I knew everything, ready to embark on my professional journey. And we were together a couple years, and breaking up and that heartbreak caused me to look beyond what I was doing and consider new professional opportunities. And I ended up having a thriving psychology practice in Michigan that never would have happened had we stayed together back then. So we did reconnect later, and we had a fairy tale story. But I think going through something difficult, I look for a way to rise from it. And what helped me was focusing on what I had worked so hard for, and that was to help other people. And I was given an opportunity to create an entire adolescent program throughout Wayne County, Michigan that was highly successful and got me really connected with the schools and the population that I love, which tends to be the people no one else works with.
Sure. Let's talk about some of that incredible work working with the adolescents and the youth. What were some of the projects you worked on?
Originally, the first one was an intensive program for substance abuse. That's a big issue with kids that I think we should address as soon as possible before it becomes out of control, life-altering. I have a 0 is not a size for self-esteem, eating disorders, body image. It's hard being a kid today. It was hard when I was a kid.
Oh, tough, really. Right, absolutely.
Surviving a suicide, unfortunately, that's something that is everywhere. High schools, colleges, it's all over, and not everywhere gives. Colorado just granted $7 million to one county for mental health services in the schools, but not all schools have these programs or systems set up to help kids get through real life.
That's amazing. So then this transition from Michigan to Colorado, tell us about that process and what that was all about and how that actually developed.
Well, I reconnected with that true love of mine from when I was 24. My career was thriving, and I was being pushed to develop some online exposure and some marketing, which isn't really who I was, who I am. But they encouraged me to have a LinkedIn profile, and he found me within a week. We reconnected, and that's all it took. We were engaged a couple months later. I was living out here a few months after that, and started over here in Colorado.
So did you develop your practice here right away when you made that transition to Colorado as a psychologist and somebody who likes to work with people to help them deal with so many issues of life?
It was difficult. That was the hardest thing I'd gone through at that time. I came from a successful background, a University of Michigan, go blue. I'm very proud of this. And I couldn't get my foot in the door. And I was being told no and turned away, and it was really wearing on me and making me question things, even going into something different. And my husband knows how much what I do is more of who I am than what I do. So I created my own company, and I started an online company to do it my way, and pursue what I love in a place that wasn't allowing me to.
So let's talk about the company. What was the company that you established, and what were some of the things that you decided to do?
So at that point, I called it Never Give Up. It was a message to myself and my clients, because I wasn't giving up on my professional journey. And a lot of my clients in Michigan were struggling finding a new therapist or a new advocate, somebody to work with. And I was still seeing them when I would go home and visit. So I worked out the technical glitches and the legalities and found a way to still work with them both online and in person when I was available. And there's a huge need. There's a huge population that doesn't want to drive to an office or be seen in a waiting room. So I started learning through technology the benefits of reaching more people.
Mm-hmm. That's terrific. So how did that happen in terms of the use of the technology and reaching more people? Tell us about the way that that actually developed.
Oh, I did everything wrong from beginning to end. I had LinkedIn, that's all I knew. So I needed help setting up my everything.
And that's one thing that I think is great about you, and I noticed, I got a sense of that during the radio interviews, is you are authentic, organic, honest. If there's a failure, if you took a risk and maybe it didn't pan out, you don't give up, which I know never give up is your credo, but you're so honest to let people know that there are things you're going to go through in life where you take a shot and maybe it doesn't always work out, so you sort of regroup and try to reposition and then maybe take another path to get to where you want. And that's very important to you, right?
Very important to me. There was a point in my life where I went from being that little girl who would just do cartwheels and say whatever I wanted and act myself. And at some point along the way, you start worrying what others think or what's expected of you or what's appropriate. And not being yourself and not being true to who you are is not a life of joy. So that's the only way I know how to do it. If I don't feel well, I'll be honest and tell you I have a headache. I'm not myself, but I'll show up.
So you mentioned that you were taking some initial shots and there were some mistakes and things of that nature, but you're sort of regrouped. Tell us a little bit about that process.
I just tried to start learning as much as I could, whether it was LinkedIn for Dummies or working with people who knew more about technology than I did. And I learned and learned and learned and was still stumbling along. At that point, my marriage and my life and my happiness and traveling, those were my priorities. So losing my husband unexpectedly less than a year and a half ago, I stepped away from everything. And when I decided to fight back and find a way, what worked for me was thinking about helping as many people as I can who have been through a situation that is unexpected and debilitating. So to learn through that, I decided to work with the masters. I started reading the books that I would encourage my clients to read, and I was sitting with my Jack Canfield Success Principles book not even a year ago, 8 months ago, and here I am now working with Jack Canfield. So I'm a firm believer in if we change the way we think, we can change the way we live.
Absolutely. And that's such a beautiful thing that you're doing, because obviously, you've been through tragedy, you've been through loss, and what most people do, the way they tend to react to that, is they pull the shades down, they sort of disappear, and they don't sometimes deal with the grief, or they're stuck in the grief, deep grief, forever. So they retreat even from loved ones and from those activities that they do and pursue in their life that bring them such great joy. And their life stops at the death or whatever loss it may be. Not that you haven't, I'm sure you still go through those days, those moments. But what you've done that's beautiful is you've taken this experience, which is so deep and was unpredictable, and have found a way to reach out to other people who may be going through something similar. And through that process, you're helping them heal as well as helping yourself heal. Because when you help others and when you give, you receive in so many beautiful ways that are, unimaginable and something you couldn't script.
Right, and I try really hard now that I'm old enough to know to be myself, to live my life. But there are expectations and standards and things people think about. So having somebody who related and understood for me, who was able to tell me, you don't have to do that. If you want to cry all day, cry all day. I did disappear from the world, and I had to heal my way. But it was finding those people who could relate and who had been there that helped me through it, and I saw the benefit in doing the same for others.
So for somebody watching who might be going through something similar right now, what were some of those first steps that you took to sort of lift yourself, not completely, because we will never forget those who've passed on and other losses in our lives, could be job, career, could be health, anything, could be all of it. What were some of those first baby steps that you took that allowed you to rise a little bit? And were you able to do those alone, or did you have to have the support of people who were expert at being able to do that?
I had a lot of therapy, a lot of support. I stepped back and I had to give myself permission to do it my own way. My parents, my dad adores me, I'm daddy's little girl, but obviously in a situation like this, they worry about my well-being and my future and my finances and get back to work. People want to start setting you up, and I had to just, it was the first baby step, but it was a leap. Give myself permission to do it my way.
Now, some of the people that helped you, were they family as well and friends, or did you find that source of energy coming from outside the nucleus of people that already knew you well and have sort of you in, the box that they put us in because they know us or think they know us as only one thing or one person when we're multidimensional?
It's so interesting that you say that, because there was a point in time where it was harder for me to go see my loved ones than to go see people I didn't know, because people I didn't know didn't have any preconceived notion of me or how far have I come? Does she look healthy today?
Right, no bias, no preconceived notion of who you are and, you're going to react this way or what have you.
I've always been a big reader and writer, so I turned to what I would ask a client to do in my state. If one thing a day. That day could be getting out of bed. You're in a dark place, and we can't do a million things. But Jack Canfield was always my biggest mentor. I've used his chicken soup books with my clients of all ages, and so I just turned to the resources I would ask other people to turn to, and things started changing.
So, what was your initial introduction to Jack Canfield? And before we even get to that, let's talk a little bit about who Jack Canfield is, because he is a legend.
He is an author. His first successful series were all of the Chicken Soup for the Soul books. Yeah. He was in the movie The Secret. He has a book, The Success Principles, which I've obtained certification and I'm continuing to get a deeper level. He is a man who is also very authentic. There are many, many mentors out there to turn to. Why I've always loved Jack Canfield is he's real. He doesn't try to tell it like he's somebody else. He was a high school teacher. We have a very similar population that we were drawn to. He worked with troubled teens, And then he wanted to reach a bigger audience and do more. And I just think he's real. I think he truly cares. And if he can give me that and teach me how to give that to others, that, you know, it was just natural for me to go to him. Some people are drawn to others. If that's their calling, I just encourage you to turn to the people who uplift you.
So what was that interaction, that initial interaction that you had with Jack Canfield?
Yeah, so 20 years ago, had I known you could work with Jack Canfield, my life might be entirely different. I went for my wedding anniversary, our wedding anniversary, August last year, to Grand Lake, Colorado, where we got married by myself with my dog and my Jack Canfield book. And I was getting through it the way I knew how, feet in the water, sitting where I loved. One of the first places he took me when I visited. And somebody approached me, and I was in a space where I was willing to be social, and it was somebody who had worked, which, you know, they said, you should do his Train the Trainer program. And I said, his what? Mm-hmm, yeah. And that's really all it took. I was up there for a week. She had a puppy that played with my dog who was grieving. It was the saddest thing for me to see my dog grieve as well. So this week was a pivotal week of my life. I came home, I decided to get a puppy. I immediately got in touch with who she told me to contact, and I call this this is the year of Jack Canfield. I'm getting a PhD in as much knowledge as I can soak up.
So how has this influence that you've received from Jack Canfield and his way, his perspective, his method, changed your way and perspective and method? How has it enhanced it and maybe tweaked or altered it as well?
I am very detail oriented. I like to understand things. So he has helped me embrace things like meditation, things that there aren't scientific answers for. Changing your thoughts can change your results. So just that inspiration, just believing that if it worked for him, it could work for me. If you meditate for 30 days, you can have your own miracles. While I was in such a dark place, I figured it couldn't hurt to try.
So let's talk about how all of this experience, the education, the development of the skill set, the experience with Jack Canfield developed into the enhancement of your company itself and some of the phenomenal things that you offer to people. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I have developed what I call the Ruthology Method. I was struggling to define myself. Who are you? What are you? I was a psychologist. That was my identity. So I don't ever want to be like anyone else. I'm aging myself here, but I was called Punky Brewster back when wearing two different colored socks wasn't cool. I'm not like anyone else. Neither are you. So our work together won't be either. And I've decided to take the success principles, which can be applied to any aspect of life. How to train your dog, how to get over the loss of your husband, you name it, there's a way to implement it. So my biggest passions are helping people see things that are traditionally thought of as negative and see the positive in that. I want to celebrate our quirks, our weirdness, our differentness, turn our pain into power, and go after whatever we want with all we got.
So let's talk about how you've been able to take the education and the skill set and your perspective on life and all these experiences that you've had, as well as the mentorship you've had from somebody, including somebody at the level of a Jack Canfield, and turned it into this fantastic company and this method that seems to be working so well for people.
Yeah, Jack Canfield taught me that what you think of me is none of my business. So I've been living life my way. Some love it, some hate it, and that's okay. There's somebody out there for everyone. So the Ruthology Method is about celebrating your individuality, your quirks, what you think are weaknesses, and turning them into strengths, and turning our pain into power, and just celebrating the fact that if we go at it with our all, we can accomplish anything. So never, ever giving up.
So never giving up, like I said earlier, that's one of your credos, very important and a really positive, inspirational one to have, hopeful one to have. With that said, what are some of those first steps that you take when initially working with a client who is stuck, who is feeling trapped, who isn't able to deal with some of the stressors that life brings us sometimes? How do they refine their joy, and how do you take those first steps with them?
So initially, I just want to get to know you. I want you to make sure I'm the right fit. So I consider the initial discovery call or strategy call you interviewing me. And if we continue to work together, it might sound simple, but I'm going to take you through some activities and exercises to get clear on what you want, because not everybody knows that. And it might sound silly, and I try to do it in a fun and playful way, but making sure you're doing what you love affects the quality of our life. So I want to know what it is you hope to get out of our time together.
Do you ever find people who are in the wrath of whatever the grief is or the experience is, where they're almost afraid to take those steps, that they're almost comfortable in the pain, comfortable in the grief, almost as if it's safer for them to stay in the negative?
I can tell you, I remember the first time I laughed, like time stopped, things stood still, because it was such an unfamiliar feeling at that time, and having fun or being in a crowd of joyful people was really hard for me to adjust to, and I still haven't done some of the things that I love. So there's a way. You have to go at your own pace. We crawl before we walk before we run. So for me, it was spending time with my dog and listening to Jack Canfield on tape or reading a book. If somebody else wants to reach out online to me or someone they trust to move forward, there's something for everyone. I came here and sat outside just to get through the day.
So that's a good example. Sometimes it's simple things that we can do, even in our alone time. Maybe not everybody has a Red Rocks next door, but there are places in our own local, environs, our hometowns, our cities, our back roads. Go to the ocean, go to the forest, just sit outside, feel the cool air, whatever it may be, the warm air if you're in Florida. You know what I mean? Just sort of take advantage of the things that are around you. Go to a park, get out of the house, get away from the office, and just feel what you need to feel. And sometimes you do have to go through grief. You have to process through it. And if that's what you're feeling, that's not necessarily a bad thing, because you have to work through it, right? You can't stay stuck in it or block it or hide it.
People try to stuff it, bury it, I'll deal with it later. I say if you resist, it persists. So I encourage people to feel their feelings before they let them go. And our feelings can be out of control, and you might have a moment in the wrong place at the wrong time. But that's okay. It's happening for a reason, and you can get through it. I did. I've broken down in many places.
Yeah. Could be a restaurant, could be in the car, could be anywhere. Holidays. So I like that. If you resist,
it persists.
It persists and continues to exist. So is it scary for people sometimes? Are they afraid to take those first steps? Does fear take over?
Fear. Fantasized expectations appearing real. So we get caught up in thinking about these things that may never happen. Sure. So yes, we're afraid and we're doing it anyway. That's another one of Jack Canfield's big messages. Do it anyway.
What I like is what you've done is you've taken Jack Canfield's expertise and his perspective, but you haven't just stuck with that. You've made it your own. You've applied the Samantha Ruth perspective, the Ruthology Method, never give up. Another one is turning pain into power. Let's talk about the importance of doing that in one's life and how you help people get to that point. It's kind of like taking the lemon and making lemonade.
Yes, and we all have pain, but you don't see babies trying to walk, getting up and saying, oh my God, I'm never going to do it again.
Right.
We all stumble along the way. So another one of my favorite quotes is, life isn't about getting through the storm, it's about learning to dance in the rain or something. There will always be something, and fighting it or questioning it causes the stress. If you can just kind of accept that this is the reality, then you can figure out what the next step to work through it for you is.
So it really is essential that we work through the pain we experience in life. None of us gets through our lives without any pain, whether it's emotional, whether it's physical. Sometimes it's both. You do have to work through the pain and turn the pain into power. But that's the key, right? Is to take the pain and harness it. Obviously, you're experiencing it. Don't sort of disregard it because it could be a warning sign that, there's underlying causes that could lead to worse scenarios. So learn to not just live with the pain, work through it, and then try to get it past and turn it into power. I'm assuming when you say that, the power is sort of reclaiming who you are and the strengths that you've had that you've suppressed. Did I hit that?
You couldn't reclaim yourself is a name I'm considering for one of my programs. And I wasn't taught not to feel, like boys don't cry, but I played sports. I was taught shake it off, move on, let's go. And I put a lot of pressure on myself, I think, as a student, as an athlete, not to feel those things. So in my journey, giving permission to heal, I learned that that's how you do it. What I had been trying my whole life hadn't been working.
And do you look back now at other scenarios, other times in your life where you were told, just brush it off, stiff upper lip, just, get through it, that type of thing, and you wished you could almost relive that moment because you would have been able to deal with it differently?
It still happens. I'll get invited to things, and I've learned not to commit if I don't know if I can be there, because I want to be ready to do more than I am. So, but my friends would say, it's okay, just come with, and if you have a moment, you can walk away. Like it's that easy. And I responded with, I'm a walking moment. I can't just walk away and then come back all better.
Exactly right, exactly. And that's the other thing too. Don't expect this to happen overnight. If you put a time limit on things, okay, I've only got a month to get through everything and be perfect and happy and joyful again. That's too much pressure you're putting on yourself, because life, again, doesn't work that way, right? You're not meant to always be smiling 24/7.
Our bodies tell us a lot, and we need to listen to them. I wasn't ready to be back working full time out pretending I was okay when I'm not. I'm not going to put on that mask. So it's really, really important, in my opinion, to listen to your body. It's telling you something. So the pain is there for a reason. And if you don't fight it and you work with it and through it, you're releasing something that you haven't let go of yet.
So do you work with people one-on-one here in the greater Denver area and in Colorado? Do you also have the opportunity to work with people remotely who might live across the country or Canada or globally?
I work individually, remotely with you anywhere across the world, but I also do groups. I think there's the benefit to working with other people going through similar things. So I do that a few times a year. It's a year-long commitment, and that comes with a visit to Colorado, so you can share this wonderful healing place with me. I also will come speak to you at schools or local events or anything to help people overcome a transition, get more successful results, how to get from here to there.
Sure.
And I will be hosting my own events through the foundation I've created in honor of my husband.
Tell us about that.
So the foundation is called Whole Lotta Love, Led Zeppelin fans. The James Lincoln Ruth Foundation, Changing Lives Through Love. And it's a combination of the two of us and our passions, sports and getting away to college, were huge impacts in Jim's life and helping him become himself and get out of that shell. So the foundation will raise money for young adults struggling with mental health to help them pursue their passions, whether it's sports or art or education. These days you have to pay to play in school, so everyone should be able to do what they love, and people who think they have a black mark or some sort of struggle that would hold them back, I want to give everyone the opportunities that helped us be who we are.
That is fantastic. What a beautiful thing to do, this foundation. Wow, that's terrific. So I think it's a beautiful thing what you're doing with the foundation and the memory of your husband. Let's talk about some of the other things that the foundation will offer and provide.
I'm living in my world of fantasies can become real because I changed the way I think. So I feel that there's somebody with a bigger platform than myself that's going to hear my cause and believe in the fact that I want to change the way the world views mental health And currently I talk about that person being Michael Phelps, because he also went to Michigan.
The
Go
Olympic
Blue.
swimmer, absolutely.
Very open about his mental health journey, and his foundation also goes towards children and being active and swimming. So I feel like somebody's going to come along and help me together make all these dreams come true. I would have a teen center for kids to come and be safe. I just would really like the world to be an open, comfortable, friendly place for everyone. So
Absolutely, absolutely. That's beautiful. So somebody that experienced similar things, who's a notable, who would tie in, be a representative with the foundation, is the type of thing that you're talking about, the pursuit of, which is a beautiful thing too.
yeah, there's people with bigger platforms. I think Lady Gaga and Pink, even their song lyrics have great messages for young girls.
yeah.
There's people out there who know how much bullying and targeting and all of these things we live with affect people, and I think that even there are commercials now, stand up
Yes. Stand up for
for
cancer.
cancer, but I've
and-
seen something for mental health. So I feel like there's someone out there who will understand that I am trying to take something that people see as negative and embrace it.
I think you're sort of coming out of the gate here, even though you've been doing this for a long time. It appears like you're coming out of the gate at a time when it's pivotal, when we are looking at several different things that you're sort of dabbling in: mental health, how we treat each other, also looking for our true sense of self, our purpose, because we're living in a society right now where everything's ramped up, everybody's angry, there's a lot of pent up frustration, and nobody is listening to each other. It's either one side or this side, or there's just all this going on. So there's all of this negativity and all of this information overload happening, and that leads to mental health issues and feeling overwhelmed and frustrated. So a lot of what you're talking about, you're hitting on areas that are really pivotal right now, and really somebody like you is really needed.
Whether people talk about it or not, every single one of us is affected by mental health. Whether it's us, our friends, our family, we all know someone. It's just not an open dialogue yet like it needs to be.
Right. And people are looking for their sense of purpose, because a lot of people have gone through their lives trying to emulate other people, trying to live a celebrity life, social media is another pressure that's come into play a little bit. Everybody's trying to do what everybody else does, and they're forgetting the sense of self, of who they are, right?
Serena Williams has a great commercial. I think it might be Nike, but it came out, and it's about how women are supposed to behave. How when she would have, if she would throw her racket or do something when she was upset, compared to John McEnroe, who would do that. The difference in how it would be discussed amongst the media. And as women, I don't know. I'm not a man, but I think we struggle with feeling like we need permission, that we can actually give it to ourselves. We were born with it. We're here. We can do whatever we want, and I hope to help everyone be their true selves and live their joys, because otherwise, what are we really doing?
Exactly, and that's a good point. You work with everybody, all different ages, backgrounds, cultures, but you really also super serve women specifically in some of their issues, right?
Having lived through it, being able to relate, I've probably had anxiety my whole life, and got the fix it, change it. That's not okay. Again, I gave myself permission to be me. It's part of who I am. I'm not saying we should all go run around and have temper tantrums and breakdowns in the middle of inappropriate places, but I don't have to change or hide that part of myself from anyone, and neither do you.
Exactly, that's right. If we're going to say something on Twitter, think before you post, no matter who it is. A lot of times we're doing things and it's sort of like on the attack, and we're not thinking, and then we're always having to apologize for things that maybe if we thought and took a breath and sort of paced ourselves, we wouldn't have to do. And that changes sort of the flow of society too. So thinking about things and really thinking about the people you affect and how words are powerful too, right, is important to do.
Absolutely. There was so much pressure that I gave myself, but people move on. When will you get over it? Things like that we attach meaning to. And that really isn't my business. what you think of me, and if that's where you, so I just want everyone to, whether it's a dimple, a freckle, a mental health condition, a broken arm, that's you, and be proud of who you are.
Exactly, it's the essence, and right, exactly, because we're all unique. There's no two snowflakes that are the same either. It's true. Now, you're also an author, and you've had an opportunity to participate in books that have come out, written by others as well as, of course, your own material. Let's talk about being an author and what that's like.
In process. So I am a part of a book with Kate Butler Books. I met her through Jack Canfield's committee. It's the 5th in a series. My book is in Women Who Illuminate. It's the 5th book. And the whole series is just about inspiring others by being ourselves, finding your own light and spreading it to the world, and sharing your story, because we all have one and no one's is the same, and somebody needs to hear it. I'm not saying that this is an easy journey for me, but people need to hear it. So that's what that book is about. And then the other book is with Kate Butler, but also Patty Aubrey, who's the president of the Canfield training group. And then it's Permission Granted. It's a group of women. Everybody has a chapter. Mine is on permission to grieve. I actually had to realize that I had to give myself permission to grieve, and I think the world needs to know that it's okay to do it their own way, whatever is authentic for them. So, yeah, and I have to say that I got into writing. I've always written, but my clients encouraged me to share my story, and my clients named my book through our conversations.
Really?
You know, I said, "Embrace the suck," and my client said, "You should name your book that."
That's fantastic. So you're always inspired by everybody, even people who are at high levels like a Jack Canfield, to everyday people who just want to heal and want to connect with others, right?
I'll tell you, I learn the most from my 6-year-old niece every day. Children are beautiful, animals. Being grateful after you've gone through something traumatic is a really difficult thing to process. And people would tell me, "You're so blessed," because I was financially taken care of and provided for. And I would hear the word blessed and feel angry. But I had to step back from that and think about all that I have that I really am grateful for. I have a wonderful family. I have 2 amazing nieces. I am grateful for every day here in Colorado. And that was a really pivotal turning point in my healing journey, because there's always someone going through something more difficult. It could have been worse. As horrible as it was, it could have been. So every single morning and every night, I write what I'm grateful for.
That's a beautiful thing. And you suggest others do that as well.
Absolutely. It's not easy. Some of the things I encourage people to do feel uncomfortable at first, but if you can incorporate them and they become a natural part of your routine, it's amazing to see the results, to watch somebody else grow, and to see myself grow with them.
Which is the key. It's a transformation, it's a transition, which is part of your specialty. What would be something that you would say, maybe a nugget of inspiration or empowerment to somebody who's watching this interview right now on CUTV News? Something to give them a sense of hope, a sense of solace that will get them to take those first steps to healing, overall fulfillment, satisfaction, and reclaiming their life and who they really are.
You are not alone. No matter how alone you feel, no matter how little you think anyone else can understand it, I promise you there's someone that you can find, whether it's a book, a person to talk to, a sibling, a relative. Don't go through it alone. You don't have to, and you shouldn't. I cry every day still, but it gets easier. I'm healing, and that's something I never thought I would say.
That's incredible. That is beautiful. Samantha, you are a blessing and a joy, and you're sharing with so many others, not only your story, your perspective, you're so open about your life, but you're sharing a true sense of the real you, what's in your DNA, who you are authentically. And what you've said throughout this interview is how you're growing along with what you're sharing and teaching others to be able to do so they can grow and they can heal. And there's nothing more beautiful than that when you make that human connection. So you're using the psychology, you're using all the other tools and resources you've developed, but you're also using that sense of who you are as Samantha Ruth through your own life's experiences. And there's nothing more beautiful than that, right?
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. That's one of the other things I've learned this year working with Jack. We are all exactly where we're supposed to be, and things come up. There are real roadblocks in life, and that used to stress me out. I'm a planner, but learning that the universe has a mind of its own, and that not fighting it. I used to get lost and get stressed out, and now the universe wanted me to go this way. I'll enjoy the ride. Maybe I see a good view, find a great new restaurant. So,
that's what you recommend everybody else to do.
Yeah.
Enjoy the ride. Well, I've enjoyed this interview. Again, you're a true blessing and a joy. And thanks so much for sharing your story with us on CUTV News.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. What an extraordinary and remarkable place this is. Red Rocks in Colorado, just outside Denver. A perfect spot to capture Samantha Ruth and her story. We appreciate her sharing her story with us here on CUTV News. She's a licensed psychologist, an award-winning author, and a speaker, and somebody who truly wants to make the world a better place, person by person. She truly believes in never giving up. She hasn't given up, even though she's dealt with so many things in her life, health issues and loss and so much more. She wants to inspire people and help them reclaim their life. That's what it's all about, turning pain into power. She can help you do that as well. I invite you to go to her website and learn more about her story and about how she can help you. Go to SamanthaRuth.com. In beautiful Red Rocks, just outside Denver in Colorado, I'm Jim Masters, CUTV News.